Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another recording of Entrepreneur Australia. Um, we've got a very special guest with us today, Dave Clare, who's a evolutionist, consults to business on culture and strategy, likes to challenge the norms around strategy and culture. One of the reasons I've invited Dave on, just to share with you, is I sat in the audience and listened to him probably about a year ago, and I must say his presentation was truly captivating. And having sat in the audience on probably hundreds of occasions and presented on hundreds of occasions and run big businesses and advised hundreds of businesses, you know, I find it, this is not a point of arrogance, but there's a lot of ho-hum out there. So Dave had a very, very powerful message, and I wanted to invite him on to talk to us today. Before we get cracking with Dave, I just want to say that for those of you who are watching today, you can go back into my LinkedIn profile. I invite you to join me on LinkedIn. The iconic John Hughes of John Hughes Motors spoke to us yesterday, a very, very powerful personal message. As you know, John is probably amongst the leading automotive dealers in the world, is listed as one of the wealthiest people in Australia, but a more focused and down-to-earth person I'm yet to meet. Before that, we had Andy Ford, who started Ford & Doonan Air Conditioning with his then business partner, who's still his business partner to this day. He started the company at the age of 19. His story is extremely strong as well and very worth listening to. Last week, we had the absolutely legendary Clem Sunter, who in my opinion is one of the leading scenario planners in the world. And he spoke about his strategic flags and how he sees the world being impacted moving forward and what's going to impact the world. So I invite you just to troll back over my LinkedIn profile. If you're not a contact of mine, please connect and have a look at those. And to all entrepreneurs out there, this will go out to about 20,000 people today. If you're seeking to raise capital for your business, please give me a shout. For capital raisers, investors that are looking to invest and raise capital for Australian entrepreneurial startup and junior listed companies, please contact me. We'd like to get you up onto the platform. And then for unique advisors, experts that focus on adding value to the SME world in Australia, like Dave, we'd like to hear your story, and I'd like to give you the opportunity to explain to me why you can put out a very powerful message like Dave's today, and we'll host you in the same way. So Entrepreneur Australia is all about adding value to Australian entrepreneurs, creating an ecosystem where they can find and raise capital. They can show what they're doing, their incredible innovations, their business growth opportunities and the like. And for capital raisers, business advisors and the like to also make themselves known to the vast entrepreneurial market in Australia. So thank you for that. That's the advertorial for today. Dave, welcome.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you. On your LinkedIn profile, you say that you're helping leaders evolve themselves and their businesses to stay relevant in the hearts and minds of people they serve.
Yes.
Very, very powerful. So, you know, without any further ado, can I ask you to introduce yourself? What's your story and why SMEs, and how do you add value?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been a privilege to be off the back of someone like John Hughes, and I've got to tell you a very quick John Hughes story. Will probably come up during this. It's a message of his that has sat with me since the very time I saw that gentleman speak, which was very powerful back in, well, God, late 80s, early 90s. But so I'm the CEO and founder of Circle Leadership Global, and I'm also the Pacific Region Ambassador for the Global Company Culture Association. So I'm charged with helping grow the association throughout the Pacific region here. My background has been in leadership development, personal development. Oh, geez, Doug, for going back from when you and I were probably both very young lads, probably 25 years ago in various forms. But I consider myself a practitioner more so than today because you know, a lot of my experience or the work that I do has come from actual practical experience of me leading teams and organizations, backed up with theories and wonderful content that we get to absorb today in the world. But a lot of everything that I've learned and the work that I do with people has been purely from my own learnings and my own failures and successes through that process. So failure is a wonderful teacher. That is certainly one first lesson to understand. But the work I do today, actually, we just had our Business Evolution Summit yesterday. And the work that I do today, as I was sharing with people at the summit there, it's come from, I used to really be focused on growth, like many people, having a growth mindset. And growing was great, but when anything shifts or changes, the market shifts or changes, or client wants or needs or desires do, when you're so focused on growth, just doing more of what you do for the more people you do it for, you can be at danger of growing into irrelevance or obscurity. And that's what happened to me twice in my life, my career, and my business. And then only in the last few years did I realize that when I evolved, that's when I had the greatest success in my life. And then I thought, well, how could I help leaders build a process to create evolution as the natural state of their business? Because really, evolution is the natural state of us as human beings. We're constantly evolving. If you go back to Darwin's work, right? So they're not the strongest, the fastest, the fittest, the smartest, but those most able to adapt to their ever-changing environment are the ones that survive or thrive. And that's what we've done as a human beings, as a species. And I thought, well, what if we could apply that same concept or theory to work and business? If we could create where evolution is the natural state of business, where we had growth phases built off the back of evolution as the natural state of our business. So I went out on a mission to help organization leaders and crystallize my purpose around that sense of saying, you know what, this is the work that I've been brought here to do, and this is where I need to be because it's the lessons that I've learned as a practitioner. And then I developed a process, and it's, I know you've had Andrew Ford on the show, and I did a leadership case study back in 2018, and Andrew was one of the participants in that case study. And I studied 25 business owners and leaders here in Perth, West Australia. I was with them for 4 months in their kitchens, in their engine rooms, to find out what the challenges that they had in evolving in their businesses. And it was really cool. Came up to 4 simple challenges that they all had, unique ones and different ones, but the 4 simple, unique challenges that they all had was really, one was a lack of clear goals and expectations across the organization. 2 was a lack of accountability across the organization. 3 was a lack of culture and strategy alignment. And 4th was a lack of leadership depth and strength. So with that, then knowing all the failures and things and where I've succeeded in my life and when I failed, looking at their work, and that they did, I built a process now to make evolution the natural state of people's businesses and help those leaders to evolve themselves first, to create capacity for their organization to evolve. And I guess that's the work that I do today.
Okay, well, that's truly fascinating, Dave, truly fascinating. So having, as you know, possibly, and as one can quickly determine from my own profile, with hundreds of small to medium businesses, and written a book on and completed a master's level thesis in family-owned business, studied what they do around the world. I think you're absolutely bang on the money with those 4 key issues. 75% of small to medium family-owned businesses don't have a written strategic plan. Now, I refer to that as the entrepreneurial strategic planning process, which lives in the entrepreneur's head, never to be known by anybody else.
Yes.
So when you talk about a disconnect in strategy and culture, how are the people how is it possible that they could know what the strategy is if the culture of the leader is to keep it all to himself or herself? So the first thing one has to do, I think, and you can, I'm going to put it out there, and you can challenge me or add to what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're bang on, Doug. And this is really exciting part, because a lot of you have a culture. Your organization has a culture, whether you know it or not, like it or not. It's kind of like, how do we bottle the magic of that business when it was first started by the owners, and they had some intent in terms of problem they were passionate about solving in the world. They had ways to uniquely think about it that differentiated them, and this vision of what the impact they were going to have on the world was. And then they just went off and did that, and they were phenomenal at the work that they did, right? And that they do. And because of that, they got all these more people wanted to be served by them, and then they add more people, and we throw more people at to do all this stuff. But what we forgot to do was, how do we label all that stuff, that the magic that it was all started on, so that when we're bringing people in who appreciate the same magic.
Yes.
And then this is what happens in organizations, is what I call organizational dilution happens, because it's all slowly, it just fades away down and dilutes down the layers, because most organizations, of course, today are set up in hierarchical structures, even though they're flat and you can name whatever you like. I work on what I call the circle of organizational leadership, where we put the purpose and the values in the center of everything that we do within our organization. But this is what happened. And so those leaders, as their business has grown because they're so good,
Mm,
And they've just, it's kind of like a patchwork quilt of reactive, adding more of this, and this, but we haven't captured the spirit of the people.
mm,
And so, once again, if we can help that leader or the leadership team really clearly label and articulate why it is they do what they do, how they uniquely think about it, what is the world going to look like when they've been doing that for 10 or 20 years, and then reverse back and go, okay, who do we need to become then in the next 3 years to start creating that world? And we can put words to that. We
mm,
can form a narrative.
mm,
And the first thing with leadership is we must form a narrative, right? So words form a narrative, but then the numbers tell the story.
mm,
So this is where we get our job as leaders is to make sure the narrative and the story match.
mm, mm,
Right. And so then the numbers is a strategy. So does our culture, what we're speaking to the market, are we achieving those things? And can we create that to match? But you got to be able to label it all first.
mm. Well, music to my ears, Dave, as you put it so sort of eloquently. Um,
Thank you.
I think what jumps out for me there is labeling the magic.
Yeah.
That's absolutely wonderful. And if you can find the magic in what you're doing as an organization, as a leadership team, and as a group of people, as I sort of suggested to John yesterday, John Hughes, and having visited his business a couple of times, the team falls into what I call a state of flow. Things just then seem to happen. The magic happens.
Yeah.
But it has to come from somebody like John Hughes, who understands what the magic is. And it can be simple. One doesn't have to boil the ocean on these things and make them difficult. But then the other point I want to make in listening to you is it needs to reconcile with the numbers. At the end of the day, things begin with the numbers, end with the numbers. I always say good leaders achieve outcomes and results, but outstanding leaders achieve the desired results. And unless you know what they are financially and what you're measuring, how do you achieve them? I want to just ask you one question and perhaps just gently challenge some of your thinking here.
Yeah, sure.
Is I would have dropped in the lack of cash flow or capital, probably right up, well, probably very high up in this list of key challenges. So many of the companies that I've dealt with in the past, particularly privately owned, small, firstly, their financial umbilical cord is attached to the family assets, which is a major risk,
Yes.
something that they try to overcome, forever in the day. They typically can't access debt funding very easily and don't really know how to access equity funding. And there's a whole strategy that goes into putting your capital structure together, accessing equity funding or debt funding that doesn't in fact end up crippling your business or tying you in knots 5 to 10 years down the line. What's your experience there?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the challenge. I have no problems with that. I would say that I appreciate the perspective you're coming from, but my thought instantly is going, hang on, so is cash flow or lack of capital, is that actually a symptom of the fact that they have no clear goals and expectations, they have no accountability, the leadership's lacking, their culture and strategy aren't aligned? Is that, and that's what's causing cash flow things, and certainly, man, I don't disagree whatsoever. Cash flow is king, and if you get access to capital, but once again, you'd need to have a clear strategy. I'm not an investor in that sense, but I would imagine this investor would, if you want to get capital from somebody, they want to see what's your plan.
100%.
What are your goals? Where are you going? What is your systems? How are you going to do this? And so, like, I 100% agree with you. I just, whether it's chicken and egg or I'm not sure. But definitely, I think there's a strong correlation between it all, because to your point, the numbers, and that's why I say words form a narrative, numbers tell the story.
Yeah,
Do those match?
I think we're saying the same thing there, in fact, just in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
I often refer to the fact that through experience, from what I've seen, and in my opinion, managers are very seldom leaders, very good leaders, and good leaders are very seldom good managers. They're two different beasts. And in the world that we live in today, the statistics are that 76% of people that start their own family-owned business do so in the hope of a better lifestyle. So for lifestyle purposes, but having run businesses and lived in businesses and started a few very significant businesses of my own with extremely valued business partners, you quickly realize that lifestyle's out the window when you've got a business and it's making all kinds of demands on you.
Yes.
But I often say great leaders know how to create a vision. They know how to visualize, and they know how to perceive of different futures and move towards that future. They know how to then articulate what that future looks like and how it can be achieved, inspire people towards it, and then break that down into deliverables, which they assign to empowered people, and then they get out the way. Okay,
Yes.
so leadership is vital. And as you alluding to, business, small to medium business, is not simple. It's multi-dimensional. There's any number of balls up in the air at any given time. And people need to have an ability and desire to call in independent experts, to call in help, and to build a team of advisors and employees around them that help them get to that future.
Yeah, absolutely. That's 100% correct. Like and this is the difference between leadership and management. And I agree. Most of what we call leadership today, Doug, is just modern management practices. You know, we lead people, we manage resources, and people are not a resource. You know, I really push people to move away from this. You know, they're our greatest asset. If they're the greatest asset, show me where they show up on your balance sheet. You know, I appreciate that people are important, but people, these are human beings with goals, dreams, desires. So we lead people, and actually my definition of leadership behind me here, which says, you know, leadership's all about helping people become the best version of themselves so they can do their life's best work while they're in your care and beyond. And that means you care about them as a human being first, employee second. And then a manager's job then is to make sure they have all the tools, resources, training, everything they need for that, and they handle the science. So leadership is the art, management is the science. And that those two things, you need both of those once again. Like culture is leading the people, numbers tell the story, that's all management and the science. There's been lots of work done on this through the years. Stephen Covey talked about making sure the ladder is leaned up against the right wall and we're going through the right jungle and all these sorts of wonderful things. None of that's changed, it's all still true. But you know, it's getting those things, and entrepreneurs and small to medium-sized business owners, that they're wearing all the hats. They're the practitioner, you know, they're the best tradesperson in their organization. They're the manager, they're the leader, they're the, you know, and sooner or later, as their organization wants to evolve, well, then guess what? They need to evolve with that. And that's this whole point of evolving yourself as a leader and all that. And you have to decide if you want to stay great at your craft, then bring in somebody else who can manage the organization and someone else who can act as from a leadership point of view and resource yourself accordingly the same way you should do for your team.
Very, very powerful. And as I was so hoping today, Dave, you really do convey things so eloquently and so in such an articulate manner. So I'm absolutely certain that our audience is gaining so much from you today. I want to just drill down on one point there, and I'm sort of belabeling this a little bit because our world is dominated by family-owned and small businesses.
Yeah.
And most people don't know, but the single largest cause of failure in family-owned business is conflict. Second largest cause is the death of the founder. And less than 30% of very successful family-owned businesses ever pass to the next generation. Okay, so there's a lot to read into that. But as you're alluding to there, a lot of the work that I've done in the past as an independent strategic advisor, consultant, mentor, coach, is simply to come in and calm things down, to bring focus, to put in place a nice, simple, step-by-step implementation plan, which ties it back into the numbers, so we know why we're doing things. But also, and I don't say this with any particular level of glee, and I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, but also to step in between husband and wife, siblings, parents and children, and bring a calm decision-making process into being. You know, and to show people that the world is not about to crash and burn.
Correct.
That there is a way out. Show them where the light is sort of sitting at the end of the tunnel, how we're going to get there. So that sort of decision-making process, that bringing some clarity, etc., as you refer to it, is so paramount. I just want to ask you, you've just recently put out some really compelling work, and you've been running some workshops on what I regard to be some compelling subjects, and you refer to disruptive times. Can you explain to me how you see the times as being disruptive? What's going on?
Yeah, well, like if it wasn't disruptive before all this pandemic stuff, it certainly is now. I always say, like to me, in the last couple of years, even traveling around Australia, speaking at conferences everywhere, and working with clients across the country, that we are in our generation's most uncertain of times. And I just said, like, every generation's had its own uncertainty. So but I think this is our generation's most uncertain times, and it definitely is now, because it's even highlighted even more that we have no clue what could possibly happen for us. But what I like to think about is, before, and you would have seen this with your vast experience, it was predictability, right? So we could go, there was 10 years of this, 10 years of that, and 10 years of that. It was like this 10-year cycle, and it's fairly predictable. But as we've moved in, even probably in the last 10 or 15 years, there's been a lot more organizations come out that are disrupting their industries, their markets, and things like that. And, with the advent of, just look at Uber, Netflix, and say Airbnb as three of the biggest disruptors that have come along in their industries over the last 15 years. And there's all social media, which has disrupted the whole media and marketing world. But this should be the most exciting of times for us as entrepreneurs, I believe, because there's no opportunity, or very limited opportunity in predictability, but there's plenty of opportunity in uncertainty, because nobody has a clue what should be done or how it should be done anymore. We have ideas and thoughts. And if nobody can predict the future, well, then guess what? The best way to predict the future is to create the one that you want. And this is why, once again, if you work with the people with the people you choose to serve, and how do I stay relevant in the hearts and minds of those? And Steve Jobs was brilliant at this sort of stuff. He knew we wanted 1,000 songs in our pocket, not an MP3 player, right? And so, Henry Ford, same thing. Whatever you want to believe, whether it was him who said it or someone made it up, that maybe it was something Henry thought, which was, if I'd asked my clients what they wanted, they would have asked more horses. Instead, he gave them more horsepower. But people, why you do what you do won't change in this thing, but how and what you do can and will change forever. And so that's why this should be exciting times, because if you're listening to the hearts and minds of the people you choose to serve, well, then you can start creating things that they didn't know that they wanted or needed, or or how or what they wanted. They know that they wanted it, but they didn't know they wanted it that way. None of us knew we wanted a fax machine, Doug, back when fax machines first came out, right? But we wanted to find a way to send messages. So if you look at that, now you look at today's world. Here's the really exciting thing. So if you look at Airbnb and Uber as two of the biggest disruptions that happened in the past 10 years or so, guess what's happened to them through the pandemic? They've been disrupted. So two of the biggest disruptions have been disrupted. So when I talk about, these are uncertain times and what is the future of disruption, if you are not taking this stuff seriously, you are one of those people who are going to fade away into the sunset or obscurity or whatever it is, because you're not willing to accept or embrace the fact that disruption is going to be a normal phase of business. Like, crap, here we've had a business that's only been around for 10 years, one of the biggest disruptions, and it possibly got knocked down to its knees. And like, what's it going to do going forward? So like, it's amazing. And I get a little bit excited. I call it fascinating, somewhere between scary and exciting. So I'm fascinated about what's happening right now. But I'm confident, because I'm always looking at how to stay relevant in the hearts and minds of the people that I serve. And I know that if I keep pursuing that and anticipating their future needs, I can always anticipate having clients in the future, because I'm anticipating the future needs of my clients. So, but embrace it. Like, you got to embrace this disruption right now. It's funny, because you would know Tom Peters, right?
Yes.
Yeah, one of my favorite book of all time was Reimagine. He wrote it back in 2001, and he was talking about disruption back then in 2001. And just phenomenal. And so if you embrace it, you'll find a way. And you'll create your own future. If you try to ignoring it or pretending, it's like being in a cyclone or a hurricane or a tornado and pretending, no, there's no cyclone, there's no tornado, there's no hurricane. Wishing it away won't get rid of it.
Yeah, very thought-provoking, Dave. Very, very thought-provoking. Thank you for that. Now, I know that we had set aside 15 to 20 minutes for this, but we could probably chat all day, because I find you so fascinating, and the message that you put out to be so fascinating. I suppose if I put what you've just said slightly differently and try and sort of wrap it up in a nice little sort of parcel, the message that I would give is that business owners really need to have a handle on what their business model is. What business am I in? Is this a good business to be in? How do I create value, capture value? And what is my business model? Now, for those that would like to explore this thought, just go and Google business model canvas. You'll see that typically your business model has 9 to 11 moving parts. And therein, you can do what Dave's saying, and that is get innovative around each of those business model components and how they link to one another. So how do I distribute my product? And I know, Dave, you just want to touch on digital transformation in a moment, and I'd like you to speak to us a bit about that. But how do I connect with my market? Who is my market? What's my value proposition? How do I compete? Who am I competing with? You know, how do I make money? Things of that nature. Have a look at your business model. And if you want more information on that, of course, you can chat to Dave or you can chat to me. I'm sure, as with myself, Dave will run a workshop for you, look at your business model, provoke thoughts, come up with all kinds of ideas, and help you be innovative. So please call Dave, go to LinkedIn, you can find him there, or contact me directly. But Dave, digital transformation, talk to us a bit about that.
Okay, I just want to touch one thing, and I definitely will talk about it. Business model, critical, I understand that. Every business model has a shelf life. The question is, has yours expired and you just don't know it yet?
Great point. Great.
Right, because that's what happened to all these businesses that they had amazing business models, but they were past their use by date.
All right. Can I add a thought to that?
Yeah, please.
That is, over the last sort of 13 years or so that I've been advising predominantly SME, family-owned, small to medium businesses, I make a point of asking them to tell me about their business model. Now, this is not a criticism, it's simply a reality.
Yep.
Almost without exception, I get a very glazed over look coming back at me as if to say, you know, you've got a bolt stuck out of your head, Doug. We don't know what a business model is. And that's fine. You know, not everybody needs to know sort of the academic definition of a business model. But as you've just said a moment ago, you need to know, you need to get on top of what your business model is, to know that the landscape shifts and is shifting constantly, changes with us. And how are you changing accordingly? And not just changing to keep up, but changing to thrive, to compete, to succeed, and to, you know, just really achieve outstanding outcomes.
Yeah, 100%. And so this is a great segue to the question about digital transformation. So Jack Welch said that if the rate of change outside your business exceeds that of what's going on inside your business, the end is near. Now, if you look at whatever you want to define, I asked this of about 40 odd business leaders yesterday, and they said it's rapid today. And I said, what's it going to be like in 3 years' time? And it's going to be rapider. Right? So highly technical terms. And so if you're not keeping up today, and it's only going to get faster or more rapid going forward, you're in big trouble, right? Which then, if you look at one of the exercises I challenge people on, which leads to possibly a lot of the digital transformation work that people might need to do, is I get people to, there's working in your business, Doug, and working on your business. I get people to work outside their business. So I'll pull you outside your business and we go, okay, if this is where your business is, let's go across the other side of the street and let's sit there. We're going to start that same business, so whatever it might be, across the road there. What would we do with this new business to put those guys out of business? How would we put those guys out of business, or at least take their market share away from them? What business would we have to start over here to do that? And then, so this is the start of the transformation. So if you start thinking because when you put yourself out of business, you're putting your old way of doing business out of business. But when somebody else puts you out of business, you're out of business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Fantastic point. And
so
it comes to a lot of entrepreneurs as a surprise when there's no more cash in the bank.
That's right.
They realize suddenly they're out of business. The point I want to sort of make there as well is from my experience, when we talk about competing and achieving competitive advantage, firstly, when the small to medium business out there is thinking about that, they need to think about sustainable competitive advantage and building strategic flexibility into what they do and what they think. And also keep in mind, there's one of two ways in which you can compete. That's by doing the same thing, just better, or doing something completely different. And the world is moving very quickly. It's either catching up or it's overtaking us. And if you're not thinking about this, as David said a moment ago, you will be put out of business. And I think the statistic is that 80% of privately owned startup businesses fail within the first 5 years, which is alarming. It's very alarming. How do you not become a casualty? Dave, in the time that we've got, and we don't have much left, can I ask you just to bestow just a handful of pearls of wisdom and some advice to privately owned businesses? What would you be saying to them, sort of top 5 things, top 10 things right now in this market?
Okay, so we'll touch on the digital transformation. Digital transformation is not optional,
Mm,
right? It is not optional anymore.
mm,
You must find a way to digitally transform. Doesn't mean your business has to become purely digital, but it needs to embrace digital. If you're not embracing digital and looking at ways to offer your products, your services, the systems, the processes, the way you interact with your clients, you know, if anything, this pandemic has shown us when it sent us all to our rooms, we embraced digital because we were forced to, it was thrust upon us.
mm,
Now, if we think, oh, we can't wait for it to get back to normal. It won't go back to normal. It'll go back close to where it was, but we will not move forward the way we were moving forward. You
mm,
must embrace digital, or you must develop a digital marketing, or not even digital marketing, but digital transformation strategy of your business. It's
mm,
not optional.
mm.
When you talk about there, a couple of last key points I would share with everybody, Doug, is, and I love what you talked about there about being better. One of my little Claire's quirky quotes is that when you strive to be better, you're comparable. But when you strive to be different, you stand alone.
Mm,
And the only way to get a sustainable competitive advantage is to capture the spirit of your people. You can have a technological or a product or a service advantage for a period of time, but the only sustainable advantage you'll have is your ability to capture the spirit of your people.
mm,
Because the organization that wins in the infinite game is one that outbehaves the other one.
mm, mm.
And how we think as an organization determines how we act. Therefore, if I can help my people think more in alignment to the values of our organization, they act in accordance, that will behave more closer to our values, which is the unique way we think about solving the problem we want for our clients, that we want to solve for them, and we'll be able to do that. And so as a leadership, this is why culture is always a hot topic,
Mm.
because it's that anyone can duplicate the bricks and mortars, the products, the services, but your ability to capture your people. And then the last thing I want to share with you was a tip, which is I studied a whole bunch of businesses, not only through the case study, but my clients and a whole other organizations, to find out why do some businesses execute far better than other ones. And I'll leave you with this one here, which is, it's how do we create fast execution? Bust the myth that execution is hard. And fast execution requires 4 things. F is for focus. So you need an innate focus on what matters most. Be very clear on the 3 things that matter most in your business right now for the next 90 days. Then have a system of accountability in place so everybody knows who's accountable for what, where, and when. And then number 3 is keep the plan simple. The tactical plan to achieve those objectives very simple. And then T is for transparency. Make sure everybody can see it so nobody can hide. When you have focus, accountability, simplicity, and transparency, you will execute at a far greater rate than you ever have on your strategy, therefore driving the numbers, which will match the narrative that you've been putting out.
Yeah, it's really awesome. Such a powerful message, Dave. Such a powerful message. And you really have delivered outstanding value to our viewers today. And I'm very, very grateful. Very grateful. I see you've got some really lovely light blue colored books to your right there. Are we giving out 500 of those to our first 500? Just joking.
No. Here's what I will do though. I offer only 4 a week, 30-minute free sessions with me.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to daveclare.com/contact and you say that you saw this episode on your show, and I will give the first 5 people who go to that a free 30-minute session, whiteboard session, one-on-one with me. No obligations, no sales pitch, no thing, just a pure challenge your thinking about where you're at with anything you've heard or discussed on this show.
Fantastic. Well
How's
done.
that?
Thank you. Really appreciate that.
And if you're here in Perth, I'll give you a copy of this. That's fine.
There we go. There we go. So just to wrap up, once again, just viewers, go to Entrepreneur Australia to view this episode and all of the others that have been on of late and will be on all the time. Those that are looking to raise capital, please come in there. Let me know. We can help you get ready, investor ready, dress it all up, and put you out into the market quickly, affordably, and easily. Those that look to raise capital or offer money to entrepreneurs, they're always seeking funding. We want to create an environment here where you can connect. And advisors like Dave that have got a very powerful, wonderful message and can add value to the multitude of privately owned SME junior listed companies across Australia and beyond our borders, please contact me and we'll get your message out as well. For those of you that are looking for ongoing business coaching, mentoring, advisory, financial, capital markets advice, you can contact me directly as well. But today's about Dave. Please give him a call. Please support him. Very, very powerful message, Dave, and a lot of value there. Thank you so much. And I'm very grateful. Lovely to have you on, and thank you for your time.
No, my pleasure. Just very quickly before we go, did John Hughes tell you his .001 story?
No, he didn't.
Very quickly, because this is so cool. We'll end with this. It was in his math class when he was a young kid, and the teacher went around and they were asking what the mathematical equation, the answer to it was, and everyone in front of him was like 0.01, 0.01, 0.01, 0.01, going around, and he's in his mind goes, it's 0.001, it's 0.001. And he said that when he answered, everyone's like, oh, like his thought in his mind was, oh, maybe I'm wrong because everyone else thinks it's that. Don't be afraid to be different. Don't be afraid to stand up for what you believe is right and be different in the marketplace. If you think just because everyone else is doing it doesn't make it right.
Brilliant. Wonderful message.
All right. John Hughes. Thank you, John.
You have a wonderful day. And
yes, you too, Doug. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your time. Okay. Have a good one. Cheers, Dave.
Bye.